Howdy, and welcome to Rebuilding Real Life. I am your host. My name is Mike, and I'm glad you're all here today. Episode 1, Believing the Lies About Ourselves. Today, I would like to talk about the lies we start believing about ourselves in addiction, especially when shame gets so loud that it starts sounding like the truth. I know when I walked into treatment, I didn't just feel like I had made mistakes. I felt like I am the mistake. And I didn't just feel like I had failed. I felt like I was a failure. The lie in my head was brutal. It sounded a lot like I'm unlovable, I'm a piece of shit, I'm a failure, I've ruined too much, and I don't know how anyone could really love me after this. And I know that sounds really heavy to some people, but I also know that I'm not the only person who has walked into treatment or a recovery meeting or IOP carrying that kind of shame. Sometimes the lie is not just, I messed up. It becomes, this is who I am now. And recovery had to become more than changing behavior. I had to learn how to stop agreeing with the lies that were trying to name me. And I think that's why shame is so dangerous. Shame does not just remind you of what happened. Shame tries to rename you. And so I think there's a difference between guilt and shame. And I don't think I understood that for a long time. What I've come to realize is guilt can actually be useful. Guilt says something happened here that needs to be repaired, and it can move me toward honesty and accountability. And it can move me towards making things right. It can help me take action. But shame, it goes further than that. It says, no, Mike, this is who you are now. It doesn't just say you did something wrong. It says you are wrong. And when I start believing that, I don't usually move towards healing. I usually move towards hiding, or I move toward isolation, sitting in my apartment, eating my Mike and Ikes, or I move toward defensiveness. And even sometimes I believe that grace, it can be real for other people, but probably not for me. And those lies, they start sounding like, I'll never change. Or people only know the worst version of me. Or my family will never really believe I'm different. I've said this to myself a lot. God might forgive me, but people won't. I've also said this, maybe I deserve to stay stuck. And I remember saying to myself when I walked into treatment, maybe this is just who I am. Those are all lies. And when you believe a lie long enough, you start building your life around it. And that's the tricky part, because shame doesn't always keep the same voice. Sometimes, as we get farther along in our recovery, or we start doing some healing, the lie changes shape. And for me, it has changed over time. When I got to treatment, it was blunt and it was ugly, that I'm unlovable, I'm a failure, and I'm a piece of shit. It's so blunt and ugly. Now, after some time and after some healing and after doing a lot of work, the lie sounds a lot different in my head now. It sounds more like, maybe I'll never be good enough for my family. And that one is sneaky because it attaches itself to my family, which I care about deeply. And that's not me saying my family is wrong for needing time. I'm just being honest about what the shame does inside of me when things don't heal as fast as I wish they would. Because the truth is, people are allowed to need time. My family is allowed to not trust me. They're allowed to be cautious. They're allowed to not forgive me. And so when they need time, that's okay. I don't have to turn that into a shame statement and say, maybe I'll never be good enough for my family. But that's what I do. I just did that the other week. I've been struggling with that one. And trust does not rebuild just because I want it to. People's healing does not have to happen on my timeline. And at the same time, I can be honest that it hurts. I can be honest that it's hard when I know I'm changing, but the trust hasn't caught up yet. I can be honest that the old shame still tries to use pain as evidence. Shame says, see, you'll never be enough. See, you're still the old version. See, this is who you are. And I think sometimes shame takes that real pain and it tries to turn it into like a final verdict or something that has to be like so hard for us to separate those two. And that's where, for me, I have to slow down because the pain is real. The consequences are real. You know, people don't trust me. They don't want to get together. They don't want to hang out as much or see me as much. But repair is still needed. But that doesn't mean the lie is true. It doesn't mean that I'll never be good enough for my family. It just means that this is going to take longer than what I thought it would. I think a lot of us addicts, we want stuff to happen like right now, right away. Look, I'm better. I have 6 months clean. I have 4 months clean. I have 9 months clean. Why aren't you where I am? Well, a lot of times families aren't where we are because we've been doing therapy every day or we've been in treatment and we've been working on things. We've been sitting in groups and processing. And our families are out here living their real life and they just aren't where we are. They're not on our timeline. And that's hard sometimes because we want people to be where we are now. And when we start believing the lie, when that lie is running in the back of our head, it starts showing up in real life. And it's not always in an obvious way either. One thing I've had to learn is that shame doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes, for me, it looks like defensiveness. Sometimes I explain myself more. A simple apology would be better instead of explaining myself for 45 minutes. Sometimes it looks like that isolating that I talked about, where I'm just sitting in my apartment, eating my Mike and Ike's or my cheesy popcorn and watching a TV show, because sometimes trying just feels exhausting because that lie keeps telling me you'll never be good enough. So why even try? And that's exhausting. And sometimes it looks like people pleasing because I'm terrified of being seen as the old version of myself. Sometimes it looks like wanting people to hurry up and see the new me because I'm tired of being associated with the old me. And sometimes it looks like freezing because I'm overthinking everything. Am I trying too hard? Am I not trying hard enough? Do they think I'm being manipulative? Do they think I'm being sad? Do they think I'm making this about me? And if you've been through treatment, you might know this feeling. You come out with hope, right? We all leave treatment. We have all this hope. Everything's better. We just did all this healing. But then real life doesn't automatically update its opinion of you. And that part's hard because when we're in treatment, things start to make sense. When we're doing IOP or going to recovery meetings every day, or we're in inpatient treatment, like we start to have all these light bulb moments where things make sense and we start to see things a lot clearly because we're finally sober. Our brains are starting to heal and we start feeling hope again. We start believing that maybe our life can actually be rebuilt. But then we come back to real life and there people are still cautious. People still need space. People still remember the damage, and that can hurt even when we understand it. I can understand why trust takes time, and I can still be honest that it hurts. Both can be true. But if I still believe I'm a failure, then every hard moment starts feeling like proof. For example, if someone needs space, I hear rejection. If someone is cautious, I hear condemnation. If I make a mistake, I can hear confirmation that nothing has changed. And that's why this has to go deeper than just behavior. Because if I still believe the lie, then everything that happens to me in my life gets filtered through that lie. If I believe something false about myself long enough, then I start interpreting everything through that lie. So if I believe I'm a failure, then every mistake becomes evidence. So if I make a Facebook post about something that's upsetting me and it makes people mad or feel a certain way, or I hurt them by the post, then that becomes evidence that I'm a failure. I screwed up at this recovery thing. I made a mistake. What's the point? Oh my gosh. If I believe I'm unlovable, and if I believe I'm truly unlovable, then every hard conversation becomes evidence. Like, see, you're just unlovable. They'll never love you. If I believe that I'll never be good enough, then even the progress that I make doesn't feel safe. And I'm kind of doing myself a disservice because I can't see that I'm even making progress because nothing feels safe and I'm always feeling on edge. And it just feels like something I have to keep proving. And that's exhausting because now I'm trying to live differently. I'm trying to outrun a lie. And even good things start to feel temporary. So even peaceful moments can start to feel like they're about to fall apart. I could be sitting at the beach with my family or watching fireworks or doing something, and it feels like, oh my gosh, this is just, I'm about to lose all this. I'm not good enough. And you start to feel really crappy. Even progress can feel unsafe because part of me is waiting to be exposed because I'm believing all these lies about myself. Sooner or later, people are going to find out I'm still not enough. And that's what shame does. That's how it works in my head. And if you can relate, like, I get it. It's hard. Life turns into evidence, hard moments into proof, people's boundaries into a verdict, turns silence into rejection. It turns one mistake into, see, nothing changed. So the lie can feel familiar, but not true. Familiar does not mean true. So I want to be careful here because I don't think the answer is also fake positivity. The answer is not to swing from shame into like some motivational version of recovery where I say, I'm great now. Everything's fine. No one should be upset anymore. Because that's not truth either. Truth is honest. It's more honest than that. Truth says that I have failed at things, but I'm not a failure. It says I've done things that caused real pain, but I am not unlovable. And it also says I have things to repair, but I'm not beyond rebuilding. So recovery cannot become a shortcut around accountability. Grace cannot become a way to skip responsibility. People are allowed to need time. People are allowed to have boundaries. People are allowed to heal on their own timeline, but their timeline does not get to become proof that I am worthless. I can take responsibility and admit that I caused harm without becoming the harm. And then I can own my failures without becoming a failure. And I just keep doing the next right thing, even if nobody claps for it. And for me, this is where faith comes in. It matters here. I don't believe God agrees with shame, but I also don't believe that God asks us to pretend that damage didn't happen. Grace isn't pretending. Grace is a way forward. And that way forward is usually smaller and more ordinary than I usually want it to be. So what do we actually do when the lies get loud? And I think this is the important part. How do we start practicing truth in our real life? I think replacing the lie in our heads, it starts smaller than we want it to. Because we can't fix our whole identity in one afternoon or with one podcast or one therapy session. At least I can't. And usually when I do try to fix everything at once, I end up overwhelmed, frustrated, or trying to prove something. So I think it's simple, and I've kind of broken it down. It starts with this. There's one lie, there's one truth, and there's one action. So we have to name the lie, and then we have to answer it with truth, and then we have to take one small action that agrees with that truth. So if the lie is I'm a failure, then the truth might be I have failed at things, but I am not a failure. And the action might be keeping one small promise today. So in real life, in my real life, that looks like this one small promise that I can keep is like, I told my daughter the other day we could go to Five Below. In the past, I would have like told her that and then the next day figured out a way to not go because my anxiety was getting loud or I was high or And then I didn't want to drive with her, or I wanted, to escape, and then I wouldn't take her. So keeping that one small promise to her is the action that I can take to prove that I'm not a failure to myself. It's not proving my whole life has changed. I'm just keeping one promise. If the lie is that I'm unlovable, the truth might be that I have done things that have caused pain, but I am not beyond love. And so the action that I might take is to pray honestly. Instead of hiding and not praying, then I pray with a lot of intentional honesty. And look, when we're praying, for me, it's in my car or in my apartment. I'm usually by myself. There's really no reason to hide. God already knows the truth. But if I can say it out loud and pray honestly, that really helps. Another example is if the lie is, I can never be trusted. The truth might be, I can live dependably today without demanding credit. And the action might be doing the next dependable thing quietly. So the example I just gave about taking my daughter to Five Below, I just showed up the next day. We went to Five Below. I didn't point it out to my wife. I didn't point it out to my friends or my sponsor or anyone in recovery like, hey, look what I did today. I just did it. I didn't want, and I'm saying it on here to give you guys an example, like a real life example of what that could look like. So it wasn't something where I needed to take credit for it. Like, hey, look what I did. Another lie could be, I'll never be good enough for my family. The truth might be, I can keep becoming safer, healthier, and more honest, even if their healing takes time. And the action for that, for me, is to stay consistent without trying to force an outcome. So just keep showing up to my recovery meetings, keep talking to my friends in recovery, keep talking to my sponsor, keep talking to other people at meetings, go to fellowship, be of service, and doing all these things that keeps me safer, healthier, functional, stable, and more honest. For a long time, I practiced the lie. I rehearsed the lie. I believed the lie. I built reactions around it. So now we have to practice the truth. And sometimes that truth feels awkward because shame is more familiar to us. We've been stuck in our shame and our guilt for so long with our drinking and our using and our destructive behaviors that it feels so familiar. But again, familiar does not mean true. Sometimes living differently starts with answering the lie differently. And I'll close with this. If you're listening to this and the worst parts of your story still feel like the truest parts of you, I get that. I believe that too. And some days I still have to fight not to believe it. But I do not think shame tells the whole truth about who we are. You might have failed at things, but you are not a failure. You might have done things that caused real pain, but you are not unlovable. You might have a lot to repair, but that does not mean you are beyond rebuilding. So listen, if you're in your car, if you're folding laundry, if you're at the gym and you're listening to this, I want you to stop and listen to these again. You might have failed at things, but you are not a failure. You might have done things that caused real pain, but you are not unlovable. You might have a lot to repair, but that does not mean you are beyond rebuilding. And I believe in you. I believe in us, and I believe in our ability to rebuild our life. Maybe that is where recovery starts getting real. Not when we pretend the damage did not happen, but when we stop letting shame be the only voice allowed to tell the story. You are not the worst thing you've done. And today, you can practice living like that might actually be true. And I hope you do. That's all I got for today. Thanks for listening to Rebuilding Real Life. If this episode connected with you or you got something good from it, share it with someone who might need it. And if you're in that rebuilding season right now, just keep doing the next right thing. Don't believe that lie. Not perfect, just willing. Have a good one, y'all.